All right, y'all, today we're gonna go over what you need in 2026 to start a pressure washing business at 3 different price points. I've seen some guys make some videos like this. They were awesome videos, but I felt like they didn't really break down the list, and I feel like having a list in front of you as well, 3 different price points to start is something a little bit different, so I wanted to do that. Now, something I don't have listed is a business license and insurance. Obviously, for any of these 3, you're gonna need that, okay? Some of you are gonna opt out of that, but I would highly recommend getting a business license and insurance because that is going to protect you and your business, mainly you though, okay? So let's just hop right into it. $1,000 to $1,500. And for the record, you could probably start it for much cheaper, but $1,000 to $1,500. If you wanna go cheaper, hop on Facebook Marketplace, but you'll be able to buy some new equipment here. And something you're not gonna see here is listed as a trailer. And some of you are gonna say you need a trailer. I have seen guys with Priuses that are loading it in the back of their car, making it work, okay? So you need a pressure washer. I would recommend starting with the 4 gallon per minute. Again, if you wanna go cheaper, you can start with less, but I would try to start with at least a 4 gallon per minute pressure washer. You can even get one of those, the DeWalt ones at Home Depot. You're gonna need a garden hose. I would recommend 100 foot. You're gonna need a J-rod tip. That's gonna allow you to shoot a little bit higher than the tips that come with the pressure washer, okay? So that's gonna allow you to get 2 to 3 stories depending on the gallons per minute you have for your pressure washer. Of course, you're gonna need chemical. I would recommend having a gas can. I guess technically you don't need a gas can, but it's one of those things that's cheap enough to have, and it's gonna allow you to stay on a job site much longer than having to pack up and leave to go get gas just because you didn't wanna spend the 30 bucks, probably even cheaper, to get a gas can. And then you're gonna want a surface cleaner. Technically, you don't need a surface cleaner, but concrete when you're starting off is one of the things that you're probably gonna be doing more of. So I'd recommend getting a surface cleaner, even if it's a small one, and that's gonna allow you to clean concrete a lot faster. Now, some of you are gonna say, well, what about a pressure washing hose? All right, I'm saying this is what you need to start with. Your pressure washer is most likely going to come with a pressure washing hose, okay? It's only gonna be 50 foot, and you're gonna have to be moving your pressure washer a lot, but this is what you need to start with, and that's probably gonna come with it as well. It's gonna come with the gun that you're gonna need to start your pressure washing business, okay? So that's the basics. $1,000 to $1,500. Again, you could probably start it for even cheaper. This is basically, you want to upgrade very quickly. Quick little thing here. Here's my trailer. So it's not the nicest trailer that you'll see, but we wash some really nice properties with this trailer. We do commercial, we do residential, and it is just exactly what we need. And it is perfect. Gets us in and out. We're able to wash really nice houses in, an hour and a half to 3 hours. We're able to do driveways extremely fast, as I said, but basic setup here. And this would cost you roughly anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 to set up, depending if you want to have somebody build it for you or not. All right, so we're moving up now to the $2,500 to $5,000 mark. Now, some of the big differences here is just going to be upgrading, and you'll also have a trailer and such. So pressure washer, again, start off with at least a 4 gallon per minute machine, and if you can, do the 5.5 gallon per minute machine. That's going to make a pretty big difference. You're going to need a garden hose, again, 100 foot. I would recommend at least getting 100 foot of pressure or of garden hose. You're gonna need a J-rod tip or an M5 twist. I personally love the M5 twist. It makes it super easier to switch from a fan tip to a shooter tip. Some of you are gonna say it's not a shooter tip. It's basically a shooter tip, okay? Maybe if you have an actual shooter tip, you'll get a couple more feet, but it's not that big of a difference. But I like having the M5 twist. It's a little bit more expensive than what you can get a J-rod tip off Amazon, but I truly love the M5 twist, so I'd recommend getting one of those. Reels, that's gonna be one of the things you don't have over here. That's gonna make your life a lot easier. If you're gonna go on the higher end of the budget, you could go with a pressure washing reel, pressure washing hose reel, and a garden hose reel. I would say if you're only gonna get one reel, go with the pressure washing hose because that one's a little bit heavier typically, and that's gonna be harder to wrap around the arm, the old method. So that's how I started off. I had 0 reels when I started off. So I would recommend if you're going to get only one reel, do the pressure washing. Now, depending on how high you wanna go with your budget, you can get a trailer for this one as well. May not be the biggest trailer. What I rock with is a 5x8, and I actually love the more compact one because it allows me to get in and out of spaces a lot easier than if I were to have like a 12-foot trailer, okay? So a gas can, again, self-explanatory. Now that you've got a bigger budget, highly recommend getting more pressure hose. 200 is ideal, 300 if you can, okay? 200 foot of pressure washing hose, pressure washing hose is ideal. That's gonna get you around most properties, right? And if you can, have an extra 100 foot. I wouldn't recommend keeping it on the reel, but that way if you have a hose pop on you, it's always nice to have a backup. All right, and then you could probably squeeze in a cheap soft wash system. Some of you are gonna say, there's no way with that budget. I made a video, what was it, last week, teaching y'all how to build a $300 soft wash system. It's not the best soft wash system, but it's under $300, and you could allow yourself to wash roofs with your pressure washing business. So you can make that happen in this budget. You're gonna need a chemical tank, or I guess you don't necessarily need. When I started off, I was doing the gallons and I would pour them into a 5-gallon bucket. But at this price point, you can get a pretty cheap chemical tank for, I don't know, probably $50, and I would recommend getting that, and that way you can go to a supplier and you can get stronger bleach for cheaper. All right, and then you're gonna need a surface cleaner, as we talked about here. Depending on the size of your machine, you can go a little bit bigger surface cleaner. Typically, rule of thumb in the pressure washing world, per 4 inches of surface cleaner, or per gallon of pressure washer. So if you have a 4 gallon per minute pressure washer, that means you get 16-inch surface cleaner. Let me rephrase that. Okay, per gallon per minute of pressure washer, you get 4 inches of surface cleaner. So 4 gallon per minute surface cleaner, or 4 gallon per minute pressure washer, you get a 16-inch surface cleaner. All right. So if I were to get a 5.5, I would go with a 20-inch surface cleaner, if that makes sense. Sorry, I messed that up a little bit, but I'm not starting the video over. And then a ball valve is gonna be nice. I don't know why I added that in. That's something super cheap. And I would definitely, if you can afford it, get it over here, because it's gonna make your life a lot easier. It allows you to switch from the gun to your surface cleaner without having to turn the machine off. Also, rinsing with the ball valve on concrete, super nice to have. And then I would recommend getting a toolbox so you can keep your spare miscellaneous stuff in the toolbox. That's gonna be super nice to have as well. Otherwise, you're gonna have it spread out in your car or your truck. All right, so that's the basics of what you could get with the $2,500 to $5,000 budget. Now, depending on where you're gonna be, closer to the $2,500 to $5,000, depends on what type of equipment you get. Again, maybe you go with 300 foot of hose, maybe you go with 200 foot of garden hose, maybe you get both the J-rod tip and then 5 tip, maybe you get 2 reels instead of 1, maybe your trailer's a little bigger or smaller, things like that, okay? So let's get into the $10,000 to $15,000. Obviously, between the $5,000 and $10,000, you could find some stuff in there as well. But let's say you wanna bump it up a little bit, all right? Now, over here, you're gonna get a much bigger pressure washer. I would recommend getting at least an 8 gallon per minute pressure washer if you have that much of a budget. That's gonna make a big difference. Now, I went from a 4 gallon per minute machine to an 8 gallon per minute machine, and it made a massive difference. Like, seriously, incredible difference. So if you have a bigger budget, that's one of the things. 8 gallons per minute in the pressure washing world is a lot more important than PSI. Obviously, you don't want like 1,000 PSI, but if you're getting an 8 gallon per minute machine, it's not gonna be 1,000 PSI, most likely, unless you're getting a soft wash machine. But if you're getting a pressure washer and it's 8 gallons per minute, that sweet spot is kind of around 3,000 to 4,000 PSI, all right? Garden hose, you'll bump it up to about 200 foot here. And a lot of what you're gonna see over here is just better equipment, more of the equipment, right? So garden hose, 200 foot. If you're feeling frisky, get 300 foot. But I've never come across a job where I needed more than 200 foot of garden hose. Really never more than 150. But if you're feeling frisky, get 300 foot. Multitude of tips. So you'll want the J-rod tip, you'll want the M5 twist, and then just some miscellaneous. You'll want a turbo nozzle, things like that, gonna make your life a lot easier. Reels, you'll wanna get a pressure hose reel, a garden hose reel, and then a soft wash hose reel, okay? So multitude of reels here. Then a trailer, you can get a bigger trailer, a nicer trailer, something that can haul more weight and things of that sort. A gas can, again, it's gonna allow you, so if you're getting an 8 gallon per minute machine, you're gonna have a connected gas tank to it. Typically those don't come with a gas tank, but I'm saying a spare gas tank on top of that gas tank that connects to the pressure washer, okay? Pressure washing hose, I would recommend bumping up to 300 foot. Again, typically, even though we keep 300 to 400 foot of pressure washing hose on the trailer, we only keep 200 on the actual reel, because rarely do we actually need more than 200 foot to wash a property. It's very rare, maybe 5 to 10 times a year, unless it's a commercial property. On residential, we rarely need more than 200 foot of pressure washing hose, okay? And with these two options, it's gonna allow you to keep the pressure washer with the 200 foot. That means that you don't have to move your pressure washer around. Over here, you're gonna have to be dragging the pressure washer around the property. I did it. When I started, that's how I started. I was doing that. So with these two options, you just get to keep the pressure washer in one place. You don't have to worry about moving it. And if you have an 8 gallon per minute, you ain't toting that thing around anyways. All right, so where were we? Pressure washing hose, 200 to 300 foot. If you're feeling frisky, get 400 foot, and you always have some backup. Now you can get a nice soft wash. So over here, you're not gonna have a proportioner. You're not gonna have the reel. You're not gonna have a surfactant tank, a chemical tank, which all that's gonna make your life a lot easier. And maybe instead of a 12 volt pump, you go to a gas pump, okay? So that's gonna be where you get more into that $15,000 side, but you can decide what you want your soft wash to be. You can upgrade it a little bit more, and you can still go with a smaller soft wash if you don't plan on doing many roofs, and you can upgrade it later. But you can, with this budget, you can start off with a lot nicer soft wash system. And some people use their soft wash system to wash houses. I personally like to downstream, okay? Now, let's get into, so tanks, you can get a little bit nicer tanks if you got a bigger budget. Now, how much does that matter? It's more about appearance and how long they're gonna last. Now, I've got one of those tote tanks with the metal wrapped around. I can't think of the proper name for it, but this is gonna allow you to get those nicer looking tanks, and it's just gonna be a better presence when you're on the property. Surface cleaner, you're gonna want a bigger surface cleaner, more than likely, depending on the tips you have in your surface cleaner. We can go over that in a later video if y'all like. Any questions y'all have, please drop them down in the comments, because I'm always looking for ideas. I just started this channel. I do more short form on this, but if y'all want longer form content, I'm always looking for ideas to make longer form content on. So drop down any questions you have in the comments. Now for an 8 gallon per minute, what does that add up to? 8 times 4 is what? 32, right? Please tell me my math is right and I'm not gonna get roasted. But I have a 32-inch surface cleaner for my 8 gallon per minute machine, and you're gonna be able to clean concrete extremely fast. We knock out driveways in 20 to 30 minutes, you know, from the time we get set up to the time we leave. So super nice. Bigger surface cleaner, obviously gonna cost a little bit more money. Ball valve, again, gonna make your life a lot quicker, a lot faster. And then the toolbox, okay? So you can obviously get a little bit bigger toolbox. You're probably gonna have more stuff. All right, now, I did wanna go over some miscellaneous stuff that you're probably gonna wanna have that you don't necessarily need, but it will make your life a lot easier. One is a pump-up sprayer. So a lot of times we like to do that because if there's a really bad spot, sometimes, you know, on driveways, there's a really bad spot that downstreaming the chemical is not gonna clean it up. So a pump-up sprayer is gonna allow you to touch up those small spots a lot easier with just a pump-up sprayer. So you'd want a pump-up sprayer. A water-fed pole, those can get expensive, but I've also found some cheaper ones on Amazon. You can get them from 100 to 200 bucks. You can also spend 1,000 to 3,000 bucks on them. And that's gonna allow you to clean windows and add that service to your business. I've also got a notepad over here that I wrote a couple things down on. It's gonna allow you with the bigger budgets to have backups, all right? So one more thing. With backups, so there's a saying in service-based business industries that if you have one, you have none. And if you have two, you have one, right? So that's just gonna be, if something goes down on site, you don't have to worry about leaving the property. It's like, okay, we just change that out. Kind of back to if you have a hose pop, it's nice to have that extra 100 foot of pressure washing hose, right? You don't really have to worry about your garden hose popping, but you never know. It might kink up and create a hole in it, right? But basically just backups. Brushes. Now brushes are something you definitely want to have. Sometimes you're just going to have some stubborn stains, and it allows you to just get rid of things. And then, yeah, that's pretty much all I could think of. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things I could think of, but I was making this video on the spot. So that's basically what you need to start a pressure washing business. Again, some of you are going to say business license insurance. Of course you need that, right? Some of you are going to opt out of that. I would recommend getting it 100%. before you start, before you go working on somebody's property, and God forbid something go wrong. Now, if y'all want to join our Skool community, it is $1,000 Days Club, and we teach you everything you need to know about how to get leads. And it's not just for pressure washers, which it's mainly for pressure washers, but you can take a lot of the stuff we use and add it to other service-based businesses to help you get more leads. But we teach you everything you need to know. I answer questions in there within 24 hours. Small little plug at the end of this video. If you like this video, please throw a thumbs up, maybe subscribe if you're interested. And again, let me know any questions y'all have about pressure washing, about how to get leads down in the comments, and I will do my best to make a video on it. So that's all I got. So 3 different price points to start a pressure washing business and what you actually need. And I know this wasn't as fun as some of those other guys' videos where they're like bouncing around, things are popping up. Maybe I'll try to do that in editing, but I got a lot going on. So mine was more just like very generic, what you actually need down to the basics. You can screenshot this and you can have a list of what you actually need. All right, so let me know what kind of questions y'all got, and thank you for watching to the end of my video. I really, truly appreciate it.